righty, Congressman Mark Pocan is with us on the line today. It's our Middays with Mark hour, taking your calls at 202-808-9925, whatever you would like to talk with Congressman Pocan about. He is, of course, the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, represents the 2nd District of Wisconsin. Website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep, R-E-P, as in representative, Rep Mark, M-A-R-K, Pocan, P-O-C-A-N. And Congressman Pocan, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
Great to have you with us. So it is, Congress is out, so it's officially town hall time. How's that going for the Republicans, and how's that going for you?
I'll tell you, the Republicans are doing their best to avoid interacting with their constituents this month, and we're seeing the few instances where they've had town halls, we're watching amazing reactions from people, right? I mean, they're really taking them to task on a multitude of subjects, but I think healthcare still being, in the forefront. But, this is what our jobs are, right? You have town halls, you talk to people whether they agree with you or not. You don't just have private town halls or telephone town halls where you screen the questions or anything else. You actually got to meet with your constituents. And, today I'm calling you from Beloit, Wisconsin, at the southern tip of my district in Rock County, a county I happen to split with Paul Ryan. And Paul now has gone over 674 days now without a public town hall, and they're starting to put billboards up. They're really starting to put some pressure on him locally, just grassroots grown, because he won't have a conversation with his constituents. So I think we're seeing a lot of that around the country right now.
That's remarkable. And also, I just unlocked our phone lines, by the way. If people want to call in, I'm sorry, they had been locked out. So the number is 202-808-9925. Yesterday, the president, Donald Trump, dropped a bombshell on us and the world. I have no specific recollection other than Harry Truman, after he had already dropped the first nuclear bomb on Japan, even making a reference to nuclear annihilation. And certainly that was a threat, but it was a threat that he not only was prepared to follow through on, but about 4 days later, he dropped the second bomb. I was just blown away by this. I'm curious, A, your response, and B, that of your colleagues.
I have said dozens and dozens of times when people ask me about Donald Trump, I'll say, in a lot of ways, we have checks and balances in the system. And generally, it's the stuff he says and puts out there that's not going to happen versus the stuff I worry about. Sometimes he just decrees something by tweet and it gets out there. This is the one exception. I've always said my biggest worry is that at 4 a.m. he gets up and he sends out some tweet that sets off Kim Jong-un, because it's a little hard to put the genie back in the bottle. And what he did in those comments, as you said, were so unbelievably belligerent, ignorant. I can't even express enough words to describe how dangerous what he did was. And then when you have to have his Secretary of State and his ambassador to the UN all trying to reel back the comments, you can't have the commander-in-chief without the respect of anyone in the country or even the people he works with to say something as wrong and idiotic as he did. And, the fact that I just can't help to understand that as his polls drop to 33%, I think I heard one was 32% today, that when you start seeing these actions, we've seen this movie trailer before. I am hoping that he is not, doing something incredibly stupid for his own self, rather than addressing the way we need to address this, which is obviously, our partners in the Chinese have to be the major players in trying to make sure we get North Korea to do something right. And let's face it, the UN just voted that way, right? We're moving things forward in the right way. What he did was absolutely irresponsible for anyone who's in the White House, and I honestly think this may be the worst thing yet I've seen out of this administration.
Isn't it ironic that America First was the slogan of the Lindbergh crowd in the late 30s, early 40s, who did not want us to go to war against World War II, and now his America First could be the thing that starts World War III? Maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but it just shocks me.
Well, I not only listened to his words and I watched the video, but he almost looked down as if he was trying to read something that he must have jotted down about this and how he said it, and he even screwed it up the second time, which we've come to expect. But it was those are you can't say those kind of words unless you're really, really serious, or you diminish the military in this country. And then by tweeting this morning saying that he's already improved the nuclear arsenal, that's an outright lie. I've been listening to general after general this morning say, well, that's not actually true. And when he diminishes our credibility as a country, especially with someone as unstable as Kim Jong-un has been as a leader, this just puts our entire nation and everyone who very honorably works to defend this country and the military at risk. And it's just the opposite of what a president is supposed to be about. And again, I think this one is really, for me, the rock bottom I've seen yet out of Donald Trump.
Now, the spin machine over at Fox News is processing, and on Right Wing Hate Radio is processing this as, oh, finally, we've got a president who will talk tough to dictators. Diplomacy hasn't worked for 8, 10, 12 years. It's time to take names and kick ass. And that's what that's what Trump is doing, and we should all be proud of him. What do you say?
Yeah, promising to drop nukes is not in that category. I mean, this should be the rock bottom then for Fox and those people too trying to spin this, because at some point, this is Paul Ryan too. I mean, one other thing I think is important, if I can just add, Tom, is when we got a bipartisan vote in the Appropriations Committee for Barbara Lee's proposal to reauthorize, give a new authorization for war, the new AUMF, and Paul Ryan single-handedly took it out of the bill that proceeded to the floor. Paul Ryan is also complicit, because if you give the keys to the nuclear arsenal to someone who appears to not be stable on multiple levels, like Donald Trump is proving more and more to be, and especially with his comments, then someone like Paul Ryan, who's supposed to be an adult, shows that he's part of the problem. And we have to make sure Congress takes another look at that AUMF reauthorization.
Yeah. I'd like to see an actual declaration of war if we're going to be using military forces.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is just, this incrementalism that we've had going on, well, arguably since the 50s, in a big way since Vietnam. You'd think we would have learned our lesson. Here we go. Rob in Arizona. Hey, Rob, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Mr. Congressman Pocan, I've got an idea. Since the Republicans are fighting, illegal voting, which doesn't exist, we should combat fake news. And one idea I had to do that is maybe have the FCC come up with the Truth in News and Information Doctrine. And this would be completely voluntary for all news and, information outlets to subscribe to. And it's basically an emblem they would put on the beginning of their show to say that they comply with the Truth and Information Doctrine, which is nothing more than just good journalism defined. And basically, if they violate that, they could be fined for, violating the doctrine. And anyone who uses that emblem who is not, part of the membership could also be fined. And it's just a way of combating fake news.
I think already, part of the journalism ethics and standards we have should do some of that. I totally understand what you're saying. I guess my fear would be anyone in this that has any connection to this administration or any oversight in this administration putting a definition of news could be a little bit dangerous. But we've got to – I'm a journalism major, right? I mean, I respect the profession. And when I watch what Donald Trump is doing, I mean, this is all so Orwellian, right? Trying to rewrite basic concepts of how we think. And, he's still got 32% right now, people thinking what he's saying is correct, although it's diminishing on a regular basis. But I totally agree that there should be some way that we can try to put this out there. I think the one thing I'd say is every time I've seen an attack like this in the past, whether it be against the LGBT community or immigrants or anyone else, they go too far and we wind up winning in the end, that people will understand the definition and the value of journalism and what it provides society and why you need that fourth estate to be there for us. And I think that we need to figure something out. And I like the thought that you're at least trying to come up with an idea. I just don't know if I want government touching it.
Yeah, this is one of those areas where, the whole conservative hysteria about government actually, we need to have a conversation about this in the context of an understanding of civics, that, yeah, government does have the power to imprison people, has the power to kill people, and that's a very, very substantial power that needs to be taken very seriously. And before you apply that power, you make sure that that it's absolutely necessary. And yeah, if I was being defined, if I was being told what I had to say based on whichever administration was in power, I'd have some real problems with that, Congressman.
Right.
So,
but I appreciate that Rob is trying to think how we get to this issue, right? Because we don't want generations to suddenly, hearing this, that they're doing this Orwellian reworking what news is.
It seems like just bringing competition back, just breaking up the giant media monopolies might be a starting point.
Absolutely, and you and I have had this conversation so many times, Tom, about what the corporate media covers and what they don't, and often it's either based on the parent company ownership or what best delivers in 22 minutes of news a sale of a new bottle of detergent, and it's not necessarily getting the facts or information out, and we're struggling into that on a regular basis.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We're hitting break here. We'll be back with more of Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls in Middays with Mark here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. We'll be right back. It is coming up on 18 minutes past.